To repay a debt of gratitude, I lived as a humble house husband for 3 years, washing my hands only to make soup, yet I was publicly humiliated by my wife. Aside from cooking, what are you even good for? You don't compare to even a single toe of Bryce's. Disheartened, I reclaimed my identity as the heir to a $1 trillion empire and turned around to rent a room in an ordinary apartment. I thought my beautiful landlady was just a regular office worker, but who knew she was the ice queen of the business world and my biggest commercial rival? When we met again, I was a corporate titan, and my ex-wife was a destitute woman whose family was ruined. She wept, bringing me chicken soup and begging to remarry, only to see the usually aloof female billionaire wearing pajamas, cuddling in my arms. I closed the door, leaving my ex-wife with one sentence. Thank you for not loving me back then. The happiness I have now is something you could never give. It was a drizzly evening in downtown Seattle. The cold wind carried moisture from the Puget Sound, blurring the neon lights of the cityscape. Inside the living room of the Villa One estate at the Heights, the crystal chandelier cast a cold light onto the marble floor, illuminating Victoria Vance's perfect but freezing face. She wore a bespoke Chanel suit, her legs crossed, sitting on the sofa with the elegance of a queen looking down on her subject. She tossed a document onto the coffee table with a crisp snap. Caleb, sign it. Her voice was as cold as the room. Caleb Sterling, the live-in husband of this household, was currently wearing a faded t-shirt and an old apron, holding a rag I had just used to wipe the floor. I looked up at the bold words on the document. Divorce agreement. Married for 3 years, I had lived like a dog in this villa. Cooking, cleaning, serving tea, handling all the chores. When she was in a good mood, she would grant me a cold glance. When she was in a bad mood, verbal abuse was the daily special. What? I put down the rag, my voice slightly hoarse. Victoria's red lips curled into a mocking arc, her eyes filled with undisguised contempt. Why? Caleb, ask your own conscience. For 3 years, you've eaten my food, lived in my house, and been kept by me like a useless waste. Do you have the right to ask why? She paused, seeming to feel that this humiliation wasn't enough, and added, besides, Bryce is back. He's 10,000 times better than you. He can give me the business empire I want. And you? Aside from cooking, what can you do? Bryce Harrington, the white moonlight, the one that got away, that she had never stopped thinking about. I understood. The 3 years of swallowing my pride, the 3 years of careful devotion. In her eyes, it was just a laughable transition period. Now that the main character had returned, I, the stand-in husband, was expected to get lost. I looked at her, the woman I had loved for 3 years, and the last bit of warmth in my heart extinguished. I've read the agreement, I said calmly. I leave with nothing. What else? Victoria looked at me like she had heard the world's biggest joke. You want assets? Caleb, don't be so naive. Even the t-shirt on your back was charity for me. What right do you have to discuss assets? Fine. I nodded and picked up the pen on the table. My calmness seemed to surprise her, perhaps even annoying her. She probably hoped to see me crying and begging on my knees. Only that would satisfy her vanity. Unfortunately, she was disappointed. Without hesitation, I signed my name at the bottom of the agreement with a flourish, Caleb Sterling. After signing, I pushed the agreement back to her, looked at her exquisite face, and said indifferently, Victoria, divorce is fine. But the person leaving with nothing isn't me. Victoria was stunned, then laughed as if she heard something absurd. Are you crazy? Caleb, has the shock damaged your brain? This is my house, my car, my company. What do you have? No. I shook my head, stood up, and looked down at her, my eyes as calm as an abyss. You're wrong. From this moment on, none of them are yours. You. Ignoring the shock and impending rage on her face, I walked straight to the entryway, took off the old apron that symbolized my humiliation, and tossed it on the floor. Then, I pulled out a beat-up, 3-year-old flip phone I'd kept hidden. I powered it on, found the only number in the contacts, and dialed. The call was answered instantly. Hello. Silas. My voice returned to a long-lost, unquestionable authority. My 3-year house husband trial period is over. There was silence on the other end for a moment, followed by a voice trembling with excitement. Sir, you've finally come to your senses. I'll arrange everything immediately. Immediately. I hung up and tossed the flip phone into the trash can. Then, I turned around to face Victoria's eyes, which were full of suspicion and anger, and calmly announced, I'll give you 10 minutes. Take your things and get out of my house. Your house. Caleb, are you sleepwalking? I think you really are crazy. Victoria finally exploded. She stood up abruptly, pointing at my nose and screaming. Just then, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID. It was her company's CFO. She answered impatiently on speaker. What is it? Can't you see I'm busy? The CFO's voice came through, distorted by terror. Ms. Vance, it's bad. All the company accounts have been frozen. We just got notice. Titan Vanguard has initiated a hostile takeover. We're finished. Victoria looked as if she had been struck by lightning. She froze, the blood draining from her face instantly. Titan Vanguard. That was a global capital predator, a top-tier giant. A stomp of their foot could make the entire city of Seattle tremble. Why would they be interested in her small company? Before she could recover from the shock, her phone rang again. This time, it was her personal lawyer. Ms. Vance, your personal assets, including all real estate, vehicles, and equity under your name, have all been frozen. The reason is, sources of funds are unclear. Clatter. The phone slipped from her weak hand, hitting the floor and shattering the screen. She looked up in disbelief, staring dead at me, the husband she viewed as worthless trash. At this moment, my eyes were indifferent, as if I were looking at a stranger. You did this. Her voice trembled, filled with fear. I didn't answer. Outside the villa, a deep, synchronized roar of engines could be heard. A row of black Rolls-Royce phantoms, like ghosts in the night, silently pulled up to the villa entrance. The beams of their headlights cut through the rain, illuminating the living room as bright as day. The car doors opened in unison. A group of bodyguards in black suits and white gloves filed out, respectfully lining up on both sides. Finally, from the back seat of the lead car, a silver-haired, upright elderly man stepped out. He held a black umbrella and walked quickly to the door. The moment he saw me, tears streamed down his face, and he bowed deeply. Sir, your servant Silas Thorne is here to take you home. A deathly silence filled the living room. Victoria stared blankly at the group of black-clad bodyguards at the door, at the faces that usually only appeared in financial magazines belonging to Titan Vanguard's high command, and then at Caleb, whom they called Sir. Her brain completely crashed. Sir? What sir? The waste who had mooched off her family for 3 years, whom she ordered around like a servant, less than a dog. He was someone, sir, and for Silas Thorne, the steward of Titan Vanguard, to come personally and respectfully call him that. An absurd, terrifying thought that she dared not contemplate began to grow wildly in her mind. Silas Thorne, known as Mr. Thorne, the number 2 figure at Titan Vanguard, was a founding veteran who had built the empire alongside the chairman. His power was at the very tip of the pyramid in the American business world. And now, this big shot who could cause an earthquake in Seattle with a stomp of his foot was standing respectfully before Caleb like a servant. Sir, you have suffered these past 3 years. Silas looked at the cheap t-shirt on me, his eyes reddening. I waved my hand and said lightly, no suffering. It was just a game. Now, the game is over. My gaze swept over the dumbfounded Victoria, and I spoke coldly to Silas. Silas, I just told Miss Vance to get out of my house within 10 minutes. How many minutes have passed? Silas glanced at the Patek Philippe on his wrist and answered respectfully, replying to Sir, 7 minutes have passed. 3 minutes remain. After speaking, he turned around. The originally kind and amiable face was instantly covered in frost, his gaze shooting toward Victoria like a knife. Ms. Vance, did you not hear my master? Or do you need me to send someone to help you pack? He emphasized the word help heavily. The group of black-clad bodyguards took a uniform step forward, their aura imposing. Victoria trembled all over, her lips quivering, but she couldn't say a word. Her mind was in chaos. Useless husband. Titan Vanguard. Sir, take over. Assets frozen. These words crashed around in her brain, nearly making her faint. No. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible, she muttered distractedly, looking at me with eyes full of fear and confusion. Caleb, who are you? I walked up to her, looking at this face that once captivated my soul, but now felt only strange. A mocking curve lifted the corner of my mouth. Who am I? I'm Caleb, the one who worked like an ox and a horse in your house. The one you called a waste, a pauper, a loser. I leaned in close, whispering in her ear, so only the two of us could hear. All right, I forgot to tell you. Titan Vanguard is mine. Boom. This sentence exploded in Victoria's mind like thunder. Her pupils contracted violently, and her body staggered back 2 steps uncontrollably. She collapsed onto the cold floor, her face full of disbelief. Titan Vanguard is his family's. That commercial empire that controls the global economic lifeline. so mysterious that few have even seen the founder, belongs to the man she trampled underfoot for 3 years. How is this possible? This is more absurd than a fantasy. You're lying to me. You must be lying to me. She screamed hysterically, completely losing her image as a cool CEO. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more breath on her and waved my hand at Silas. Silas understood and said coldly to the bodyguards behind him, "Time's up. Escort Miss. Vance out. Strip her of everything that doesn't belong to her. She is not worthy of taking a single item belonging to the Sterling family." Yes. 2 burly bodyguards immediately stepped forward, grabbing the limp Victoria by the arms. "No, let me go. Caleb, you liar. You bastard. You can't do this to me." Victoria struggled frantically, her sharp nails scratching bloody streaks on the bodyguard's arms. A female bodyguard stepped forward and expressionlessly began to unclasp the Cartier bracelet on her wrist, remove the diamond studs from her ears, and even the necklace around her neck. "My dad gave me this. This is mine. Apologies, Ms. Vance." The female bodyguard's voice was ice cold. "Your father's company went bankrupt 3 years ago. Everything you own now was bought with our master's money." Victoria broke down completely. It turned out that everything she took pride in, the capital with which she despised Caleb, had all been given by Caleb. It was the world's greatest irony. She was dragged out of the villa like a dead dog by the 2 bodyguards and thrown into the freezing rain. That expensive Chanel suit was also stripped off, replaced by a generic, rough set of clothes kept in the bodyguard's car. The rain poured down, soaking her instantly. She lay pathetically on the ground, looking at the warm lights of the villa, looking at the man she once disdained, now surrounded by a crowd like an emperor. Regret, endless regret, gnawed at her heart like a viper. She thought of all the humiliation and meanness she had directed at Caleb over the last 3 years. She remembered how, just 10 minutes ago, she had thrown the divorce agreement in his face with such arrogance. If she hadn't been so snobbish, if she had been a little better to Caleb, then would the person standing at the top of the world right now be her? But in this world, there are no ifs. Just then, a flashy red Ferrari roared up and screeched to a halt at the villa gate. The door opened, and Bryce Harrington, dressed in a designer suit and looking sleek, stepped out. He saw Victoria lying pathetically in the rain and froze, then frowned in disgust. "Vicky, how did you get like this? Didn't we agree you'd divorce that loser today, and then we'd go public?" Before he could finish, he saw the row of black Rolls Royces at the villa entrance and saw Silas Thorne's cold face. Bryce's face turned white instantly. Mr. Thorne." Bryce's voice sounded particularly shrill in the rainy night, full of fawning and fear. He never imagined he would bump into a big shot of Silas Thorne's level here. Silas didn't even look him in the eye, just gave a signal to the bodyguard beside him. A bodyguard immediately stepped forward and kicked the back of Bryce's knee. Thud! Bryce screamed, his legs gave way, and he knelt directly in the muddy water, his expensive suit instantly covered in filth. What are you doing?" Bryce was both shocked and angry. "Mr. Harrington, is it?" Silas looked down at him, his tone grim. "You dare touch our master's woman? I think your Harrington family doesn't want to stay in Seattle anymore." Master's woman. Bryce was confused. He subconsciously looked at Victoria on the ground, then at Caleb in the villa. An absurd thought made him go cold all over. Could it be that Waze Caleb is the master Silas spoke of? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Victoria, paralyzed on the ground, felt a tremor in her heart upon hearing these words, a sliver of hope rising in her eyes. The master's woman. Does he still have feelings for me? However, my next words shattered her last fantasy completely. I walked slowly out of the villa, and Silas immediately opened the black umbrella for me. I walked up to Bryce, looked at his terrified face, and said calmly, "She is no longer my woman. From now on, her affairs have nothing to do with me." Then I turned to Victoria, my eyes without a ripple. "For the sake of 3 years of marriage, I'll spare your life. In the future, don't appear in front of me again." After speaking, I didn't look at them again and turned to Silas. "Silas, handle this place. Also, find me a quiet place to live. I find this house dirty." "Yes, sir," Silas responded respectfully, then looked coldly at Bryce kneeling on the ground. "Mr. Harrington, our master does not wish to see you again. Before sunrise tomorrow, you and your family will vanish from Seattle. Otherwise, face the consequences." Bryce was scared out of his wits. He scrambled into his car and floored the gas, fleeing in panic. As for Victoria, she sat foolishly in the rain, lost in despair, as if her entire world had collapsed. I got into the lead Rolls-Royce. The convoy started slowly, leaving this place that had suppressed me for 3 years. Half an hour later, the convoy stopped at Seattle's most exclusive luxury estate area, the Pinnacle Estate. Every villa here was worth over $100 million, with strict security and high privacy. Sir, this is a property under your name. It has been vacant, cleaned daily. You can rest here tonight. Silas opened the door for me. I nodded and walked in. The villa was huge and luxuriously decorated, but right now, I just wanted to be alone. Silas, you all go back. I want to be by myself for a while. Yes, sir. If there is anything, command us at any time. Silas left with the men. In the enormous villa, I was the only one left. I walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the city lights. Memories of the past 3 years surged like a tide. To test if Victoria was worth entrusting my life to, I hid my identity and married into the Vance family as an orphan. I thought 3 years of genuine devotion could warm even a stone or exchange for a shred of true feelings. As it turned out, I was wrong. In the face of money and power, my 3 years were worthless. Phoenix, consider it charity to a dog. I took out my phone to tell my mother overseas I was safe, only to realize I had thrown away the flip phone. I needed a new phone and a new SIM card. Besides, living here was too flashy. It didn't fit my plan to play the game of life for a while longer. I thought about it, opened the computer in the villa, and logged onto a rental website. I needed an ordinary identity and an ordinary place to live to start my new life. Soon, a rental listing caught my eye. Downtown high-end apartment, Harborview Lofts, single room for rent, fully furnished, move-in ready. Requirement: tenant must be clean, no bad habits, male only. There were a few photos attached. The room was clean and tidy, with excellent lighting, just my style. The key point was, it was a shared apartment. This would allow me to better integrate into ordinary life. I dialed the number left by the landlord. Hello. A clear, pleasant female voice came from the other end, like a mountain spring. It sounded nice. Hello, I saw your rental listing online. Is the room still available? Yes. Can I come see it now? There was a silence on the other end. She seemed hesitant. Now? It's already very late. I just arrived in Seattle. I have nowhere to stay. It's rather urgent. All right then, come over. Harborview Lofts, Tower A, 1801. Hanging up, I randomly picked the lowest profile Audi A6 from the garage and drove to Harborview Lofts. Half an hour later, I stood at the door of 1801 and rang the doorbell. The door opened quickly. The person who opened it was a woman so beautiful it was suffocating. She wore a dusty, pink silk nightgown that outlined her exquisite curves. Her long black hair was draped casually over her shoulders, and her face was free of makeup, yet she was more moving than any celebrity I had ever seen. Her features were as exquisite as God's most outstanding work of art, especially those eyes, clear and deep, carrying an innate sense of detachment, like a fairy who didn't partake in earthly food. A flower on a high peak. That phrase instantly popped into my mind. Seeing me, she seemed to pause as well, a trace of imperceptible surprise flashing through her cool eyes. Hi, I'm here to see the room. Caleb Sterling. I spoke first, breaking the silence. She nodded, stepping aside to let me in, her voice remaining cool. Elena Frost. I walked into the room, and a faint, pleasant fragrance hit me. The entire apartment had a modern minimalist style, black, white, and gray tones, looking clean and sophisticated. The living room was large, with a magnificent view of the harbor through the floor-to-ceiling windows. That's the room you'd be renting. Elena pointed to a secondary bedroom at the end of the hall. I walked over and pushed the door open. The room wasn't big, but it was tidy. A bed, a wardrobe, a desk, and a private bathroom. I've seen it. I'm satisfied. I turned to Elena, who had followed me. What about the price? $8,000 a month, first and last plus deposit. Elena's tone held no ripple of emotion, as if discussing something unrelated to her. $8,000 a month in this part of Seattle was a very fair price. No problem. I agreed readily. I can pay now. When do we sign the lease? My decisiveness seemed to surprise her again. She gave me a second look. You're not going to haggle? I think it's worth the price. I smiled. She didn't say anything more, taking 2 printed lease agreements from a drawer in the living room. Take a look. If there are no issues, sign it. I scanned it quickly, just standard clauses. After signing, I transferred $32,000 directly to her via mobile banking. All done. From now on, I'm your tenant. I waved my phone, smiling. Elena looked at the payment notification on her phone, nodded, and then pointed to the sofa in the living room, her tone still cool. It's too late today. Your room hasn't been prepped yet. You sleep on the sofa first. With that, she turned and went back to her master bedroom, closing the door with a click, leaving me alone, facing a sofa that didn't look particularly comfortable, feeling a bit amused. This beautiful landlady really didn't care about hospitality, but I didn't mind. Finding a place to crash was good enough. I took off my jacket and lay directly on the sofa. It was soft, but for my 6-foot-plus frame, it was a bit cramped. After tossing around all night, I was tired, and I soon fell into a deep sleep. The next day, I woke up to the sound of pots and pans clattering. Opening my eyes, it was already bright daylight. The air was filled with the aroma of food. I sat up and saw Elena wearing a cute pink apron, busy in the open kitchen. The morning light poured through the window onto her, plating her cool demeanor with a soft halo. Her long hair was casually pinned up, revealing a pale, slender neck. This scene was very domestic, very warm. Completely different from the 3 years at Victoria's house. In that cold villa, the kitchen was always a place that belonged only to me. Seeming to sense my gaze, Elena turned her head. Seeing I was awake, she said faintly, "Up, come eat breakfast." On the dining table were 2 simple sandwiches and 2 glasses of hot milk. "You made this." I was a bit surprised. She responded, already sitting down to eat. I took a bite of the sandwich. The taste was actually quite good. "Skills. I didn't expect you, looking like an ethereal fairy, to know how to cook," I praised sincerely. She ate with elegance. Hearing my words, she just lifted her eyelids to glance at me, but didn't speak. After breakfast, she gathered the dishes and said to me, "I'm going to work. I'll prep your room when I come back at lunch. The key is on the shoe cabinet in the entryway. Remember to lock the door when you leave." Okay. She changed into a sharp business suit, put on high heels, and clack, clack, clack went out the door. The apartment was left to me alone. I stretched and walked to the balcony, looking at the flowing traffic below, feeling exceptionally good. A new life had begun. First, I went to the mall to buy a new phone and get a new SIM card. Then I texted Silas, giving him my new address and number, instructing him not to disturb me, without permission and not to expose my identity. After doing all that, I felt a bit aimless. Having not worked for 3 years, suddenly being idle felt strange. Should I get a job? The thought made me laugh. The heir to Titan Vanguard, looking for a job? But the idea seemed interesting. Conveniently, a recruitment notification popped up on my phone. Hiring. The Meridian Department Store, luxury counter sales. Requirements. Excellent image and temperament, relevant experience preferred. Monthly salary 8,000 plus commission. The Meridian? Wasn't it the enterprise owned by Victoria's family? Although it was now acquired by Titan Vanguard, the legal representative should still be her. Working in my ex-wife's company? This seemed even more interesting. A playful smile curled my lips. I edited a resume and sent it over. Surprisingly, within 10 minutes, they called back. "Hello, is this Mr. Caleb Sterling? We are from HR at the Meridian. We saw your resume and think your image fits our requirements very well. Do you have time to come for an interview tomorrow?" Edo. The next day, I specifically bought a decent suit and arrived at the Meridian's HR department on time. The interviewer was a woman in her 30s wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking sharp. Her name tag read, HR Manager, Brenda. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw me. "Mr. Sterling, right? Please sit." I pulled out a chair and sat down, handing over my resume. Brenda looked at the resume and asked, "I see the work experience section on your resume is blank. May I ask what you did before?" "I was in domestic management." I answered with a mix of truth and fiction. "Domestic management?" Brenda paused, clearly not expecting that answer. She pushed up her glasses and scrutinized me carefully, her eyes full of skepticism. I met her gaze calmly. Looks are given by parents, but aura is piled up by money and status. Even wearing a generic suit, the innate nobility and composure I carried were not something an ordinary housekeeper would have. "Yes, for 3 years," I added. Brenda fell silent, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. She clearly didn't believe me, but my image and temperament satisfied her immensely. For luxury sales, image is paramount. A good image can double sales effortlessly. "All right," she finally decided. "Your image is excellent, so we're willing to give you a chance. 1 month probation, base salary 5,000 plus commission. If you pass probation, you'll move to the formal employee salary scale. How's that?" "Acceptable." I nodded. "Good. Then come to work tomorrow. Report to the Patek Philippe counter on the first floor. Just find a store manager, Lisa." "Thank you, Brenda." The interview went unexpectedly smoothly. Walking out of HR, I took the elevator directly to the first floor. The Meridian was Seattle's highest-end mall, The first floor was all international top-tier luxury brands. I found a Patek Philippe counter. Inside, a woman in business attire with exquisite makeup was holding a morning meeting for several staff members. Everybody look alive. Ms. Vance is coming to inspect the store today. If anyone messes up, don't blame me for being unkind. This woman must be the store manager, Lisa, and the Ms. Vance she mentioned was naturally Victoria. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to bump into my dear ex-wife on my first day of work. Hello, I'm a new sales associate reporting for duty, Caleb Sterling. Lisa turned around. Seeing me, her eyes lit up too. She looked me up and down, nodding with satisfaction. Hey, ma'am, good look. I'm Lisa, the manager here. You can just call me Lisa. Okay, Lisa. All right, go change into the uniform, then shadow Daisy to get familiar with our products and sales process. Lisa pointed to a young girl nearby. The girl named Daisy smiled at me, very friendly. I changed into the uniform and started learning from Daisy. I have to say, Patek Philippe watches are indeed works of art. Every model has its story and unique craftsmanship, with prices ranging from tens of thousands to tens of millions. I learned quickly. In half a day, I had memorized the details of all the models on sale. By the afternoon, the number of customers in the mall gradually increased. Just then, a commotion came from the counter entrance. A group of mall executives in suits were escorting a woman, marching grandly toward us. The woman in the lead wore a white business suit. Her aura was powerful, her face frosty. It was Victoria. She looked thinner, and her face was a bit pale, but she was still aggressively beautiful. However, those beautiful eyes no longer held their former luster. Instead, they were filled with deep exhaustion and gloom. It seemed that being kicked out of the villa and facing the acquisition of her company had dealt her a significant blow. Good afternoon, Ms. Vance. Lisa immediately led all the staff to greet her respectfully. I stood in a line, keeping my head down, trying to minimize my presence. I just wanted to experience life. I didn't want to be recognized by my ex-wife on my first day. Victoria walked past US without looking sideways, heading straight into the boutique. How are the sales this month? She asked Lisa coldly. Reporting to Ms. Vance, down 10% from last month. Lisa answered carefully. 10%. Victoria's pitch rose instantly. Her sharp eyes swept over every employee present. What do I pay you for? I support so many of you just to get these kinds of results. Everyone was scared into silence, burying their heads lower. Her gaze finally landed on me. Probably because I was the tallest, I stood out in the crowd. She frowned, seeming to find me familiar. Are you new? My heart skipped a beat, but I steeled myself and looked up. Yes, Ms. Vance. Our eyes met. When she saw my face clearly, Victoria looked as if she had been electrocuted, freezing in place. Her beautiful eyes were instantly filled with shock, astonishment, disbelief, and a complex emotion she didn't even realize herself. Caleb. She inadvertently voiced my name. The entire counter went silent instantly. Everyone's eyes focused on me and Victoria, full of curiosity and gossip. Ms. Vance knows this new handsome guy, and judging by her expression, their relationship seems unusual. Lisa and Daisy's jaws nearly hit the floor. They never imagined that this colleague, on his first day, could make the high and mighty Ms. Vance lose her composure like this. Why are you here? Victoria stared at me intently, her voice trembling slightly with agitation. Since being kicked out of the villa that day, she had used all her connections to frantically search for my whereabouts, but she found nothing. I was like a ghost that had vanished. She thought I would never cross paths with her again in this life. Yet, she didn't expect we would meet again like this in this setting, and I had become a lowly salesman in her company. This massive contrast threw her brain into chaos again. Why would he do this? The heir to Titan Vanguard, running here to be a salesman? What kind of sick joke is this? To humiliate me? Yes, he must be doing this to humiliate me. Thinking of this, Victoria's face turned incredibly ugly, a wave of humiliation and anger rising in her heart. I watched her expression shift, finding it internally amusing, but on the surface, I pretended to be respectful and distant. Ms. Vance, I am here, of course, for work. Work? Victoria sneered, her tone acerbic and mean. Caleb, stop pretending. What are you trying to do? You think this is fun? Seeing me destitute. Are you proud? Ms. Vance, you misunderstand. I looked at her calmly. I just need a job to support myself. As for you, I don't care. My words were like a knife, stabbing viciously into Victoria's heart. Don't care? He actually said he doesn't care about me? The man who once treated me like a treasure, who obeyed my every word, now looked at me with such strange eyes and said he didn't care. A strong sense of unwillingness and jealousy made her lose her reason. Good, don't care. Victoria laughed in anger. She pointed at me and barked at Lisa. Lisa, fire him. I don't want to see this person in my company. Lisa looked troubled. This guy just started today, hadn't done anything wrong, and was getting fired? It was against regulations. Ms. Vance, this. What? You won't listen to me either? Victoria's eyes went cold. Just then, a frivolous voice came from outside the counter. Yo, isn't this Ms. Vance? Why so angry? Who upset you? A young man wearing a floral shirt and a thick gold chain, looking like a thug, walked in casually with his arm around a heavily made-up Instagram model-type woman. I recognized him. Tyler West, a famous rich second-generation kid in Seattle, known for being arrogant and domineering. Relying on his family's money, he caused trouble everywhere. Seeing him, Victoria frowned deeper, clearly disgusted. But the West family had significant influence in Seattle. She couldn't afford to offend them, so she could only say coldly, Mr. West, I am handling internal matters. No need for your concern. Don't be like that. Tyler was relentless. His lecherous gaze swept up and down Victoria. Ms. Vance, everyone knows your company is in trouble and cash flow is drying up. How about this? Have a drink with me, and I'll ask my dad to invest a few tens of millions to help you tide over the crisis. The woman next to him heard this and immediately got upset, pinching his arm and whining. Tyler, didn't you say you were coming to buy me a watch? Bye. Baby, don't rush. Tyler patted her, but perfunctorily, his thieving eyes still glued to Victoria. Victoria was pale with rage, but couldn't explode. Seeing her silence, Tyler grew bolder and actually reached out to touch her face. Just as his dirty hand was about to make contact, a hand grabbed his wrist like lightning. It was me. Sir, please show some respect. My voice wasn't loud, but it was cold. Tyler froze, then flew into a rage. Who the fuck are you? A watch seller dares to mind my business? Looking for death. He tried to yank his hand back, but found my grip was like an iron clamp, immovable. Let go. He grimaced in pain. I ignored him and looked at Victoria, saying plainly, Ms. Vance, although I am about to be fired by you, right now I am still an employee here. Protecting customers and company property is my duty. I deliberately emphasized the words company property. Victoria's body trembled violently. She looked at my back, shielding her, her eyes complicated to the extreme. Once upon a time, this back had shielded her from the wind and rain countless times. Yet she had personally pushed him away. Fine. Good boy, you just wait. Tyler, seeing he couldn't break free, started making threats. Just then, the woman next to him suddenly pointed at a watch in the display case and screamed, Wow. Tyler, I want this one. This one is so beautiful. It was a Patek Philippe limited edition, model 6102P001, the Sky Moon Celestial. The entire dial was studded with diamonds, dazzling and brilliant. Price tag $1.2 million. Seeing the price, the arrogance on Tyler's face dropped by half. His family's assets totaled maybe 20 or 30 million. If he spent over $1 million on a watch, his dad would break his legs. He rolled his eyes and had an idea. He pointed at me and said to the woman, Baby, you like this watch? Fine. As long as this blind dog kneels and kowtows 3 times to me, I'll buy this watch for you today. He wanted to humiliate me publicly to regain face. Everyone's eyes turned to me. Victoria's lips moved, seemingly wanting to say something, but ultimately, she didn't speak. I smiled. I looked at Tyler West like I was looking at a dancing clown. Are you sure? I say what I mean. Good. I nodded. Then I turned around and took the Sky Moon Celestial watch, worth $1.2 million, out of the display case. I didn't hand it to Tyler. Instead, I put it directly on my own wrist. The size was perfect. Under everyone's shocked gaze, I took out my phone and dialed Silas. Silas, pay a bill for me. The Meridian Patek Philippe counter, $1.2 million. After speaking, I hung up, looked at the dumbfounded Tyler, and said lightly, I bought this watch. Now it's your turn. $1.2 million. Just like that, with one phone call casually paid? The entire counter, no, the entire floor, fell into a deathly silence. Everyone looked at me like I was a monster. A watch salesman bought a $1.2 million watch himself? This script was too magical. Tyler West and his girlfriend stared until their eyes almost popped out, mouths wide enough to fit an egg. Especially Tyler. The expression on his face went from arrogance to shock, then to terror, and finally turned ashen gray. He wasn't stupid. Someone who could mobilize over $1 million in cash with a single phone call was definitely not an ordinary salesman. Connecting this with the Rolls-Royce convoy mentioned in rumors and the attitude of big shots like Silas Thorne. A truth that made his hands and feet cold surfaced in his mind. He had provoked an existence he absolutely could not afford to provoke. Thump! Tyler's legs gave way, and he actually knelt down, facing my direction. Big brother. No, sir. I was wrong. I failed to recognize Mount Tai. I'm just a fart. You are magnanimous. Please just let me go. He spoke while frantically slapping his own face, the smack-smack sounds ringing out. The rich second-generation kid who was arrogant just moments ago was now cowering like a dog. The influencer girl was scared silly, hiding to the side, pale and daring not to breathe. I looked at Tyler kneeling on the ground, my eyes holding no pity. Scram. I said just one word. Yes, yes, yes. I'll scram right now. Right now. Tyler felt as if he had been granted amnesty, scrambling away on hands and knees, abandoning even his girlfriend. A farce ended just like that. But the atmosphere in the boutique became incredibly weird. Lisa and Daisy looked at me with awe and curiosity. And Victoria stood rooted to the spot, her body trembling slightly, her face as pale as paper. She looked at the glittering sky moon watch on my wrist, then at my calm face, her heart churning with mixed emotions. So he wasn't acting. What he said was true. Titan Vanguard really belongs to his family. Buying a $2 million watch was as simple for him as buying a bottle of water is for normal people. And I actually humiliated such a dragon-like figure as trash for 3 years. I actually kicked him out of the house for a piece of garbage like Bryce. What have I done? Regret. Overwhelming regret, like the sharpest knife, sliced her heart piece by piece, hurting so much she couldn't breathe. She wanted to rush up, hold my arm like before, and ask why I lied to her. But she had no right. It was I who personally severed all affection between us. It was I who personally pushed him further and further away. Caleb, she spoke with difficulty, her voice hoarse. Can we talk? I took the watch off my wrist and put it back in the display case. Then I untied my employee apron and placed it on the counter. I looked at her, my eyes as calm as water, as if we really were just superior and subordinate. Ms. Vance, I think there is nothing left to talk about between us. Also, I paused and added, just now you said you want to fire me. Now, no need. I quit myself. After speaking, I didn't give her another glance, turning to walk away. Don't go. Victoria finally broke down. She rushed up regardless of everything and hugged me tightly from behind. Her body was trembling, hot tears soaking the back of my suit. Caleb, don't go. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Give me one more chance, okay? Let's remarry. Let's start over. She cried her heart out like a helpless child. Everyone around watched, stunned. The cold, domineering female CEO was actually hugging a salesman who just quit, crying and begging him not to leave. This was too much information to process. Feeling the damp heat on my back, my body stiffened. To say I felt nothing would be a lie. After all, I had truly loved her for 3 years. But reason told me there was no going back. A broken mirror cannot be made whole. Some mistakes once made last a lifetime. I didn't turn back. I just used an extremely calm tone to say, word for word, Victoria, do you know? 3 years ago, the reason I married into your family was that my father set a test for me. He said if a woman was willing to treat me sincerely when I had nothing, then she was worth me using the entire Titan Vanguard to love. I used 3 years to wait for your sincerity. Unfortunately, what I waited for was a divorce agreement and the phrase, do you deserve it? So, now it's my turn to ask you. I slowly pried open her hands that were hugging me tight, turned around, and looked directly into her tear-streaked face. Victoria, do you think the current you still deserves it? Do you deserve it? These 3 words were like 3 sharp knives, stabbing ruthlessly into Victoria's heart. She trembled all over, her hands slipping weakly from me. Yes, I don't deserve it. Before, I despised him for being poor, for being useless, for not giving me the life I wanted. Now, he owns the world, and I don't even have the qualification to stand by his side. What irony. She looked at my indifferent face, opened her mouth, but couldn't make a sound. All explanations, all repentance, seemed so pale and weak in front of cruel reality. I ignored her again, turning and striding out of the meridian. Behind me was her uncontrollable, despairing crying. Walking out of the mall, the sky outside was getting dark. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, feeling the heavy stone pressing on my heart for 3 years, finally completely lifted. From today on, Victoria and I had no further connection. I drove back to Harborview Lofts. Just as I opened the door, I saw Elena was already back. She had changed out of her business suit into a loose white t-shirt and gray cotton pants, her long hair tied in a casual ponytail, preparing dinner in the kitchen. The afterglow of the sunset poured through the window onto her, making her look much gentler. Back. Hearing the door, she looked back at me, her tone still light. Yeah. I changed my shoes and walked in. How was work today? Okay. Simple dialogue, but it made me feel very comfortable. No fake pleasantries, no deliberate fawning. Just like two friends who had known each other for a long time. I quit my job today. I walked to the kitchen doorway, leaning against the frame, watching her busy back. Her movements paused. She turned, her clear eyes looking at me. What? Got into a fight with the boss. I shrugged. She didn't pry, just said faintly, just as well. Come help me wash the vegetables. On it. I washed my hands, walked over, and stood shoulder to shoulder with her, starting to wash the greens. The space wasn't big. We were close, and I could even smell the pleasant scent of her shampoo. The atmosphere was a bit subtle. You. We spoke at the same time. You first. I smiled. She glanced at me, the tips of her ears seeming to turn a bit red. Nothing. What did you want to say? I wanted to say, to celebrate my unemployment on the first day, dinner is on me tonight. Let's eat out. She shook her head. Restaurant food is too oily, not healthy. Let's eat at home. Then, I'll cook. She looked at me skeptically. You can cook. Of course. I looked proud. Housekeeping was my old trade. In the end, I made dinner. 4 dishes and a soup, simple home-style food, but perfect in color, smell, and taste. Elena tasted a bite, and for the first time, a look of surprise appeared in her cool eyes. I didn't expect you really could cook, and it tastes very good. Naturally. Look who I am, I said without modesty. We ate happily that meal. Though we didn't talk much, the atmosphere was harmonious. After eating, I voluntarily cleaned up. When I came out of the kitchen, I saw Elena sitting on the sofa, looking at something on her tablet. She was focused, her brows slightly furrowed. I walked over and realized she was watching the video of the farce that happened at the Meridian this afternoon. Some busybody had filmed it and uploaded it online. It was now the #1 local trending topic. The video title was explosive. Mystery tycoon drops millions on watch to slap down arrogant rich kid. Domineering female CEO breaks down begging for reconciliation. The video was very clear, capturing me, Victoria, and Tyler. The comment section was blowing up. Holy crap, this guy's so handsome and rich. Bought a 1.2 million watch just like that. Isn't this a novel plot? The protagonist playing the pig to eat the tiger, and the blind ex-wife asking for the guy's number. I'm much better behaved than that CEO. Feel sorry for the CEO. Looks like she regrets it. Too bad. She did it to herself. I watched the video, rubbing my nose helplessly. I didn't expect to become famous so easily. The person in the video is you, right? Elena put down the tablet, looked up, and stared at me quietly with clear eyes. She had recognized me long ago. I nodded, not denying it. It's me. So, you're a housekeeper, and that female CEO is your ex-wife? Yeah. She fell silent. The atmosphere in the apartment solidified for a moment. After a long time, she spoke slowly, asking a question that surprised me. Then do you still love her? I froze. Then I smiled and shook my head. Not anymore. From a moment she threw the divorce agreement in my face, I stopped loving her. Hearing this answer, she seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a careful voice came from the other end. Hello. May I ask, is this Mr. Caleb Sterling? Speaking. Who is this? Mr. Sterling, hello. I am Tyler West's father, Richard West. My son was ignorant and offended you at the mall yesterday. I am calling specifically to apologize. Richard West's attitude was extremely humble. Clearly, he had investigated my identity. Oh, how do you plan to apologize? I asked with interest. I am willing to transfer 50% of the West Group's shares to you unconditionally. I only ask that you raise your hand high and let the West family live. The West Group, market cap $2 billion. 50% of the shares would be $1 billion. He actually wanted to use $1 billion to buy my forgiveness? No, he wanted to use $1 billion to buy his family's life. Because he knew very well that with Titan Vanguard's power, bankrupting the West family would take mere minutes. Before I could speak, Richard's fearful voice came again. Mr. Sterling, if you think that's not enough, I can add more. I laughed. No need for the shares, I said lightly. I'm not interested in your broken company. Then you mean? Tomorrow, I want to see an apology letter from you and your son on the front page of every media outlet in Seattle. Also, donate $100 million to the Seattle Children's Fund in my name. If I'm satisfied, this matter ends here. Richard West on the other end, hearing my request, was first stunned, then ecstatic. $100 million, plus a public apology, could buy the safety of the entire family? This was a massive act of grace. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Thank you for your magnanimity. I will handle it tomorrow. No, I'll do it tonight. I will definitely satisfy you. He hung up with 1,000 thanks. I put down the phone and saw Elena looking at me with a strange expression. In that look, there was curiosity, inquiry, and a trace of an emotion I couldn't read. What is it? Is there something on my face? I touched my face. She shook her head and asked softly, why didn't you just take his shares? $1 billion isn't a small amount. A gentleman loves money, but he gets it the right way. I said simply, besides, I don't need to use this method to make money. Making him donate $100 million is more meaningful than putting in my own pocket. Moreover, $100 million, to me, wasn't even pocket change. My words seemed to touch her. She looked into my eyes for a long time before slowly saying, are different from the rich people I imagined. Oh, what are the rich people you imagine like? Arrogant, domineering, condescending, just like that Tyler West. I smiled. That only proves he isn't rich enough. True top tycoons often return to simplicity, low-key like ordinary people, because they no longer need external things to prove their value. That night, we talked a lot, from poetry to life philosophy. I discovered Elena was not only beautiful, but also a very thoughtful and deep woman. We got along very well. It was the first time in 3 years I felt I wasn't casting pearls before swine. Early the next morning, all of Seattle was flooded with Richard West and his son's apology letter. Newspapers, TV, internet. It was everywhere, showing the father and son crying bitterly and repenting. At the same time, the Seattle Children's Fund received a donation of $100 million in my name. This incident caused another uproar in Seattle. The name of the mystery tycoon Caleb Sterling completely caught fire. And I, the party involved, was at home acting like nothing happened, figuring out what to cook for lunch. Just then, the doorbell rang. I thought it was property management, opened the door, and saw an unexpected face. Victoria. She stood at the door, holding a thermos, wearing exquisite makeup, but unable to hide the haggardness and red veins in her eyes. Seeing me, she squeezed out a smile uglier than crying. Caleb, I made you the chicken soup you like best, you. Have a taste. She carefully held the thermos out to me. I looked at her, feeling no ripple in my heart. No need, I said coldly. We are divorced. Please don't disturb my life in the future. I moved to close the door. Wait. She hurriedly blocked the door with her hand. Caleb, I know I was wrong. Give me one more chance, okay? Look, I made this soup myself. I never went into the kitchen before. So what? I interrupted her. You're doing all this now only because you know my identity. If I were still that penniless Caleb, would you be standing here? She was rendered speechless by my question, her face pale. Yes, if he were still that waste, she would be out having a romance with Bryce right now. Ms. Vance, please leave. I pushed, preparing to shut the door. Just then, Elena's voice came from behind me. Caleb, who is it? She walked out of the bedroom, wearing pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. That lazy and intimate appearance would make anyone think things. Victoria saw this and looked struck by lightning. She looked at the stunning Elena, then at me, her eyes filled with jealousy and madness. Who is she? Caleb, we just divorced. You found another woman already. She screamed hysterically. Elena seemed startled by her and instinctively hid behind me. I shielded Elena, looking at the crazed Victoria, my eyes turning completely cold. First, we are divorced. My business is none of yours. Second, who she is concerns you even less. Third, and this is the last warning, harass us again and face the consequences. With that, I gave her no more chances and slammed the door shut with a bang. Outside, Victoria's unwilling crying and pounding on the door could be heard. I ignored it. Sorry, scared you. I turned and said to Elena. Elena shook her head. She looked at me, her eyes complicated. She is your ex-wife. Yeah. Do you really not love her anymore? Really? She was silent for a moment, then suddenly stood on tiptoes and lightly kissed me on the cheek. A soft touch gone in an instant. I froze completely. She kissed me? That's a reward for you. Her cheeks flushed a moving shade of red, and after speaking, she ran back to her room, as if fleeing, leaving me standing there, touching my cheek, smiling foolishly. The days that followed were peaceful and sweet. My relationship with Elena changed subtly because of that morning kiss. Although we didn't explicitly say it, we both understood tacitly. She would make breakfast and wait for me to get up, and I would prepare a sumptuous dinner before she got off work. We would curl up on the sofa to watch movies and stand on the balcony, enjoying the breeze and night view. This plain happiness was what I had dreamed of, but never received from Victoria. I became more and more certain that Elena was the right person I had been looking for. On the other hand, after being rejected, Victoria didn't seem to give up. She started frantically calling and texting me, confessing, apologizing, saying how regretful she was, how much she loved me. I ignored it all, blocking her directly. Later, she found my mother's contact info through various channels, wanting to try the mother-in-law route. As a result, she was cursed out by my strong-willed mother. My son worked like a slave in your house for 3 years. Were you blind? Now you know he's rich and want to come back to scavenge? Our Sterling family doesn't take gold-digging trash like you. Get lost. My mom's actual words were 100 times harsher. Victoria was completely out of options. Her company, under Titan Vanguard's continuous pressure, was on the brink of bankruptcy. She went from a high and mighty female CEO to a debt-ridden, destitute woman. Rumor had it she sold all her luxury goods, moved out of the high-end apartment, and rented a place in a dilapidated old neighborhood. And that Bryce Harrington, after my warning, fled Seattle with his whole family the next day in disgrace, vanishing without a trace. None of this had anything to do with me anymore. In my world, there was now only Elena. Today was Elena's birthday. I booked Seattle's most romantic rotating restaurant in advance, bought a huge bouquet of her favorite white roses, and prepared to formally confess to her today. In the evening, I drove to pick her up from work. She wore a white dress today, looking ethereal and impossibly beautiful. Where are we going? She sat in the passenger seat and asked curiously. It's a secret. I smiled mysteriously. The car drove all the way to Seattle's landmark, the Space Needle. The rotating restaurant was at the top. When I held her hand and walked into the restaurant I had booked out, covered in rose petals, her cool eyes misted over for the first time. Caleb, I didn't let her finish. I knelt on one knee and took a velvet box from my pocket, opened it to reveal a dazzling pink diamond ring, the heart of the ocean. Elena, I don't know how to say fancy romantic words. I looked into her eyes and spoke with utmost seriousness. I only know that every day with you, I am happy and at peace. I want to cook for you every day, see your smile every day, and be good to you for a lifetime. So will you be my girlfriend? She looked at me, tears finally slipping down uncontrollably. But on her face, a smile blossomed more brilliant than the diamond. She nodded vigorously. I will. Excitedly, I put the ring on her finger, then stood up and pulled her tightly into my arms. Outside the window was the brilliant night view of the entire city. In my arms was my entire world. Just as we were kissing deeply, an untimely voice broke the beautiful atmosphere. Chairman Frost, a man in a suit, was looking at us with shock. More accurately, looking at Elena in my arms. I recognized the man. He was the general manager of a real estate company under Titan Vanguard, surnamed Jean, and the Chairman Frost he mentioned. I looked down at Elena in my arms. I saw her stick out her tongue playfully at me, a trace of slyness on her face. She leaned into my ear and whispered, "Forgot to introduce myself. I'm Elena Frost, chairman of Horizon Group, and also your biggest business rival." Horizon Group, that mysterious conglomerate that had risen abruptly in recent years, the only one capable of wrestling with Titan Vanguard in several sectors. I was completely stunned. After all this, I, the heir to Titan Vanguard, had actually picked up my biggest competitor? Seeing my dumbfounded look, Elena laughed even more happily. She stood on tiptoes and actively kissed my lips. After a long while, our lips parted. She leaned against my chest, her voice soft and sweet. But it doesn't matter. From now on, we are family. Right, darling? Looking at her eyes that seemed to speak, what else could I say? I could only answer her with a deeper, longer kiss. To hell with business rivals. To hell with ex-wives. I only knew I had found my treasure. Story complete.